Welcome back to the Comics Aficionados. We are back for the special Sunday edition due to yesterday being 4th of July, Independence Day. Hopefully everybody that was celebrating had a good time, had a nice holiday. I know it sounds like most of the panel here did. We did celebrate out here in the Philippines as well, but it's time to talk about some comic books. And there was an interesting hit piece that we're going to cover from Time Magazine. Not really Time Magazine, it's really time.com. This wasn't in the magazine or anything. This is just some clickbait type article, but the premise behind it and just the execution and the research that went into it was really bad. So I definitely wanted to cover it here. And we got a great panel for you today. Back for the first time in a long time. It's got to be in 3 or 4 months. Eric Breen, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How's everybody doing today?
Well, I'm doing excellent. Hopefully everyone else is doing well. Also with us is Ash on Comics. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy day after the 4th.
Dude, I heard you powered through and you've been up for like 36 hours.
Me? No.
Yeah.
But I did stay up last night on another stream, so I got about 3 hours of sleep.
Oh, you did? See, he was lying to you, Eric. He decided to take a little nap.
What else is new?
Also with us is the proprietor, or one half of the proprietorship of Fantastic Comics, Yul Carter. How you doing?
I'm wonderful. Looking forward to this. Happy Sunday.
Yeah, this should be a good conversation. Also, my co-host, Doc. How you doing, buddy?
Looking forward to shitting all over Time Magazine this morning.
Absolutely. So Paley's supposed to be with us as well. So if you're looking for the curmudgeon of Critical, he's supposed to be here. But yesterday, besides just being the 4th of July, I believe it was also his birthday. And so we'll see if he makes it. He might have been out a little too late to make it for the 10 a.m. Comics Aficionados stream. So if you haven't seen the article, let's see if I can bring this up. Let me hit the share screen. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. I think this is it. Share. Hopefully it's working. There it is.
So there it is.
This is the article. It's we're re-examining how we portray cops on screen. Now it's time to talk about superheroes. And so it's not a very well thought out article. It doesn't make a lot of good points, but there's one thing that just the premise of the article crumbles underneath when you think about it. And let's bring the banner up. The basic flaw with this entire article, Eric Breen, is there a man flying above New York City saving people right now?
Not that I'm aware of.
Is there a teenager that can shoot webs out of his hand and swing between buildings?
Again, not that I am aware of.
All right. Do we think there are really cosmic humans in the cosmic realm waiting to come back to Earth to save us with newfound cosmic powers? Was there a woman that when she re-entered the atmosphere was empowered by the Phoenix Force so that she could consume an entire planet?
I wish I had a different answer for you, but...
Yes, I hate to break it to the person at Time that wrote this, but superheroes, while we do enjoy them, and we even celebrate them here on the channel, they're not real.
No.
Wait, what? What?
They're not real.
Wait, so you mean to tell me comic books are fake? I feel like I've been lied to my entire life.
That does it. Back to wrestling.
I know. We need something real.
Absolutely. It's real to me, damn it. So it's hilarious that she's the author of this is portraying real life emotions, putting real life weight onto these characters that could never exist in the real world. And we'll get into some of the reasons why, but just thinking about a character we all love, and I think is a great character, Yul Carter, Batman.
Yeah.
If there was really a billionaire that was taking the law into his own hands, working outside the law, taking on supervillains, he would be in prison, living in the real world.
I mean, there have been times when he's been attacked by the cops, obviously. He's worked outside of the law enforcement situation. But more often than not, he is in conjunction. But there's no way we would allow someone like that to get away with what he's doing.
There's a reason why we don't permit vigilantes. We already don't permit them. I mean, you can make a citizen's arrest, sort of, But like, I mean, we saw just the other day, like you pull a gun on people even when they're acting threatening towards you, and you're probably going to still end up going to jail too.
You're going to get arrested for sure. You know, they got to investigate it. So we do have a super chat from Ryan Wilson, $4.99. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Very generous of you. It doesn't really matter what these characters say or stand for because they can change each time a different writer takes over, and that is absolutely that is absolutely true. Eric Brain, I believe you've been reading comics the longest out of all of us. Has there been one comic character that you've read in your 45, 50 years of reading comics that stayed the same the whole time, where nothing has changed about him?
Not any character that the average fan would remember. No.
Yeah, so a lot of the interpretations that people might take offense with, you know, with the actions of a Batman or even a Superman, a lot of times that's the interpretation of the writer. You know, the next writer would never even consider doing that or think about it. So the onus that this writer is putting on the characters rather than the creators, I think is odd.
I kind of agree with you on that one, but I do think that there needs to be some degree of foundation to all characters that shouldn't change.
Well,
Like,
I agree with that too, but that's
okay. Yeah. Like if Superman isn't set to Earth from Krypton, is he still really even Superman? You know, if Batman's parents don't get killed, is he still Batman?
Yeah, that's a different article. That's a different conversation, Doc. But you know, thank you very much, Ryan Wilson, for supporting the channel. So we will get kind of back to. So that's the basic flaw. When you come into this, you have to realize that this woman, the author, does not realize that superheroes aren't real. So you got to understand that before you can understand where she's coming from. And one of the first big point that she makes is, and I'm going to throw this one over to Ash. What are superheroes except cops with capes who enact justice with their power? Are superheroes really just cops?
No, not at all. And I think Doc kind of touched on a little bit when he talked about the citizen arrest. You know, this is something that's been a concept in America for a long time. Yeah, you know, the police enforce the law and they've got certain rights, or not rights, but certain powers that are put upon them based on what their position is with the government. But any citizen can arrest someone else that's, you know, committing a crime. You see someone, you know, I don't know, robbing a bank, and then they're running down the street with the money, and then you grab them and tackle them and hold them for the police to come. You yourself aren't a cop, but you aren't necessarily a vigilante. However, you do have to be careful. You have to follow all the rules and the laws yourself. You can't go around, you know, shooting people because you think they broke the law. And for the longest time, superheroes always behaved that way. They were the kind of people like, well, you know, I got to just hold them here and maybe tie them up to the lamp post, and the cops will come. And this was something that we as comic readers kind of all understood, that superheroes didn't really cross that line. They worked within the law, not outside the law. Now, sometimes that would get bent when it came to things like, ooh, there's aliens invading. We don't have laws to really apply. Ooh, Galactus. Well, Galactus, we need to read you your rights. No, there's things that get preposterous and absurd, and we just all accept that. But when it comes to the normal criminal running down the street, and we've always accepted this up until maybe the last 20 years when things started changing in society and that culture came into comics, and then superheroes stopped really becoming the heroes that we've thought of them, and they did actually start behaving more vigilante-like. I think she misses the button completely, that they're cops at all. It's just, when I read this article, I was like, I don't think this woman's ever read a comic book in her life. Like, I
would say that's almost 100% guaranteed. Just some of the facts that she's thrown in there. You can see that she maybe watched a movie once.
Yeah,
but she certainly hasn't read the characters. Now, obviously, there are some superheroes that are cops. You know, if you consider Punisher a superhero, I believe he used to be a cop, also of a soldier. You know, there's other characters that are cops. Breen, do you think that superheroes are basically analogous to police?
No, I've always thought them as, what if you could be more than anybody around you? I mean, if you could, take the premise of law enforcement, but put it on a scale to where they can do things that an actual policeman couldn't do, not based by following the law, but by the laws of physics. I mean, if you could fly, if you can bend steel in your bare hands, et cetera, you can do more to help if that is what you aspire to do. So I've never really made the connection. I mean, I can see them being, I know there have been times in Batman where Gordon is deputized, and depending on what era in which you're reading, and the same thing with like Superman would have the support of the Metropolis Police, et cetera, but I've never really considered them liaisons to law enforcement at best, but somebody that can do what the police cannot.
Yeah, I always thought the liaison aspect was the problem. And going back to the super chat and going back to the first question also is when you have reality enter in your comic books, it's really hard to go back to the original story. So a new person comes on and they just kind of do what they want with the character. But when reality bleeds in, it really hurts the superhero aspect of it. So if I never really thought of them as cops. It was one thing for Spider-Man or Batman to bust up some thugs, but a guy like Superman doesn't do that too often. I mean, obviously there's plenty of instances over 60 years where 80 years where he's done it. But overall, it's just, superheroing, beating up the bad guy, and dropping them off at prison. Due process isn't something we need to think about too often when we're reading a superhero story.
Yeah. Due process doesn't work on Galactus.
Yeah, all the street level heroes though they all basically function in the same way that a cop does. All your street level characters. It's when you get into your high level international type or extraterrestrial threats that they stop really acting like police. I mean, because you have everybody from Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Spider-Man, Daredevil. They're mostly just stopping criminals from doing criminal things that cops would otherwise do.
I don't know. Daredevil likes to fight like evil ninjas and stuff, and Batman's rogue gallery. You think about Joker, Penguin, Riddler.
No. What I mean is, yes, there are aspects of that, but Joker, Riddler, a lot of the times those guys are just committing crimes too. They're just crazy people committing crimes. They're robbing places or stealing stuff or kidnapping people. They're still basically doing just exaggerated versions and very flamboyant versions of otherwise typical kind of petty street crime.
Okay, so you're in the camp that wants to put whatever restrictions or weight that's on cops right now. You think that they should be moved on to superheroes as long as they're street level superheroes?
No. I think that the whole thing is friggin' absurd. I'm just pointing out that yes, they do kind of function as in the place of a cop. At least I could see that the logical thread there.
Well, if Chase from Paw Patrol has to go down, then I guess Batman's got to go down too. If he's just another analogy for a police officer.
Yeah, they wear a badge on Paw Patrol, I think.
Well, all right.
Yeah,
well, maybe they got to deputize it.
That's kind of the crux of the problem here, though. Anyway, the idea of having superheroes, whether they're cops or not, to me really seems irrelevant because what's under attack here are police. The reason why superheroes are now under the magnifying glass is precisely because there's a certain element of society that is deciding cops are terrible, evil things, And superheroes, since they work with the police and since they work to fight for justice and bring villains in to face justice, they're the problem too. That's it. Cops bring villains to justice, superheroes bring villains to justice, so they're both the same problem. And that's something that's what you need to evaluate. And that's something that this article writes around very subversively to try to focus on other things that aren't real, like racism. Well, racism is real, but in the way that they purported, the big systematic thing, like, well, maybe the superheroes are the racist too because they work with the, like, just shut up. You are just a bunch of villains who hate the fact that there's people that stop villains. Criminals always hate heroes.
Yes.
Oh, it's like if you don't like cops, stop breaking the law. Stop breaking the damn law. What's the problem here? Oh, it targets certain people. It targets people who break the law.
Morning, Bailey.
Yeah, morning.
That's welcome to the channel. Happy birthday. I hope you enjoyed your birthday and the 4th of July.
I did. I had a great time. We went on the boat. We don't take the boat out very often.
Nice.
Went on the boat. Rode around the lake and watched fireworks. People were just setting money on fire last night. It was pretty awesome. But just the whole lake was alight with fireworks on both sides. It was absolutely gorgeous. But yeah, had a great time. And so cops are bad. No,
Apparently.
I don't think so. Yeah, apparently. I actually talked to several last night because the wildlife and TVA people were on the lake, making sure that the boaters and everything like that were obeying the law. So they were going from boat to boat. The people, hey, how you doing? Make sure you're not boating drunk, and stuff like that. Everything okay? Yeah, everything's great. And I said, yeah, be careful out there. And he just kind of looks at me, and he said, yeah, you're probably the 300th, 400th person tonight to tell me to be careful. And I said, well, there's a lot of crazies out there. He said, well, I don't think that the crazies are the people around in this area. So, God bless East Tennessee.
Well, so
Yeah. Well,
congratulations and happy birthday.
Thank you,
Happy
thank you.
birthday.
No, I think that this whole article, the premise, this is another example, though, in my opinion, of the slippery slope that we're on. I mean, I know everybody, we've been told for decades that the slippery slope isn't real. It's a logical fallacy, except for every single time it turns out to be real.
Right.
And we had 6 months ago, or 6 weeks ago, it started going ugly about cops, and now they just take anything within proximity to cops. Next thing, it's going to be firefighters. Next thing, it's going to be
it's already firefighters.
Firefighters
stop the fires, and that's not good. They want to keep the fires going.
Yeah. So the whole point is, it's okay. We got one piece.
Well, no, the whole point is there's a debate going on about cops right now, and this person is trying to lump superheroes in as de facto police officers in fiction, and I don't think they should be treated the same. That's the point.
The whole point is they're making a logical argument that they are ostensibly functioning in the same role as cops do. Therefore,
but you obviously agreed with that point.
Well, I mean, to a degree, they do. I mean, they just don't have the same kind of oversight that cops do. They're vigilantes doing the same things, and I understand the logical, way that they're getting from point A to point B. I think their whole theory is ridiculous. But they're close enough. It'd be like regulating a certain type of chair and then going to every other conceivable thing that you could sit on. yes, they're both things you can sit on. I mean, in the same way that cops and superheroes are both people that stop bad guys from doing bad stuff, or try to help out.
But cops operate in the real world, and they're real people who are severely flawed. And not all cops are flawed, but you do get flawed people in there. When we're looking at superheroes, for the most part, they operate in a vacuum of a different reality. And for the most part, they're morally upstanding people. Other than, you can talk about some of the anti-heroes that are definitely operating more in the gray.
Oh, of course. I think all of them are technically operating in the gray because they're all vigilantes. And then you can get grayer when you get characters like the Punisher, or Wolverine, or Ghost Rider, or Manhunter at DC, or Huntress, or whatever. The ones that don't have a line at killing. But they're still ostensibly serving the similar functions, which is stop bad guys from doing bad stuff.
And that's the key. The whole issue here is they're trying to conflate things that really are irrelevant. It's not that cops are the problem. They're trying to argue this idea like, well, bad cops are the problem, and all cops are really bad because it's this institutional thing, yada yada yada. Now, look, we all recognize that when a cop goes bad and he does something bad, that's not that particular cop is not a hero. That particular cop is not serving justice. That particular cop is a criminal who themselves is subject to law enforcement enforced by, guess who? Other cops. This is all kind of a sham, and it's from their perspective, it's I don't know, like smoke and mirrors to get past the real point, which is, like I said before, villains don't like heroes. They don't like cops. Villains do not like the law enforced on them because they're the bad guys. Not everyone that
doesn't like cops is a villain, Ash.
That's true, but what happens?
I can tell you, growing up, I did not like cops, and I didn't break the law or anything, but I was not a fan.
Well, you're not a fan though because cops have to enforce laws, and even if you think like a law is unjust, like a speeding ticket.
No, I was not a fan for other reasons.
Okay, well, you had your own reasons. I don't know what they are, but in general, people don't like cops. They don't like because they enforce things. They're basically, I don't know, you could say analogy of daddy. You did something wrong and dad's going to whoop you now type thing. Like that's like, you don't like that. Experiences with cops generally are in a negative sense because cops are the ones that have to tell you to stop what you're doing. Oh, you were driving too fast. I'm going to write you a ticket. That damn cop.
But you also have cops. Once you give power to people over other people, they're inevitably going to abuse it. Not all of them, but enough of them.
No, for sure. That's the case. But I think what's happening is you're seeing articles like this that you're right. Not everyone hates cops because they're villains, but lots of people have empathy and sympathy, and they have emotions, and they see bad things happening, and you see what happened with the George Floyd stuff, and you go, oh, that outrages me. And the people who are the villains play on those people's heartstrings with BS articles like this to be like, yeah, see, this is why you should hate cops, and now this is why you should hate superheroes too, because it's all part of this systematic problem. And the people that aren't the villains wouldn't have brought us to this point. It's the people that are the villains that brought us to this point, and then they've played on the heartstrings of everyone else, and so now we've got this gigantic outrage mob that's just kind of out of control, and the whole atmosphere is just, everything's been blown so out of proportion that no one can see straight anymore, and it's all based on this idea that I'm trying to I'm sorry, I'm not doing a good job, but get to the point of bad guys don't like good guys because the good guys try to stop them from what they're doing, and they more importantly point out to the rest of the world, these are the villains.
So I have a different take on this. Let's see what you think about this one. I don't know that this person's a villainous person, but I do think that they're searching for internet clout. They say that people have successfully, put a negative light on Chase from Paw Patrol. They've had, I think you had cops have been pulled off the air. I think the first 48's been pulled off the air. What is the biggest target in all of entertainment right now? If you could take that shine, put it on superheroes, and get them removed. If you could be the person that got superheroes removed from entertainment, you'd be a big deal. That would be a lot of internet clout.
Yeah, that's some Tipper Gore type stuff. Just canceling like a whole like genre of entertainment. That would suck. Maybe put like a label on the comics. This comic portrays instances where cops or where superheroes take the law into their own hands.
You might get to a point where you have entertainment where you might have a disclaimer.
What does that gold badge look like when you do get superheroes removed from comic books? You know, it's very upsetting to think.
It's a blue
like
check
that.
mark on Twitter, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because like if you can get like someone in chat was saying that Legos removed their firemen and cop sets, or at least people were talking about that. And yeah, if you're gonna get rid of like cop characters, the TV shows and stuff like that, could superheroes be far behind? I mean, they're not selling that great anyway, like they used to. So it could coincide, you know.
This is definitely more pointed at the movie realm of superheroes, and those are definitely selling. It's the biggest franchises in the world.
Sure thing.
But we do have a super chat from SSJ Future Gohan, aka Josh, $9.99. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. It's very generous. This article is pure trash, unadulterated garbage. The author points out that these characters are fictional, yet continues to refer them like they exist in the real world. These people are sick, and that's my big problem. Is if you want to talk about cops and we want to have if we want to talk about those issues and deal with them, because there is some issues that people obviously need to talk about. People feel like their voices haven't been heard. Then we need to talk about that. But conflating fictional superheroes as if they're part of that problem set is really the issue that I have. Breen, you've been on this earth longer than most of us. You got a little bit more wisdom and knowledge. Is that what you came out of the article with as well?
I have a little bit of a different take on the article. Let me get my salt handy.
Oh, there you go.
I need it. I read that article. Okay, do you guys remember the Far Side comic strip?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Do you remember the one where the guy's yelling at his dog, and it's like, Ginger, you I told you not to dig up that flower garden, and he gives this long speech, and then it's what you say to dogs and what dogs hear. It's just blah, 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 Ginger, blah, blah, blah. I read that this article is blah, 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 straight white men, bad, blah, blah, blah. We want to change entertainment to where the heroes are anybody but. And this was just, her vehicle to plant seeds for something that, hell, at least Marvel movies already seem to be going in that direction without her help. And, she seems to have lost track in all of her virtue signaling. She kind of forgot about the business aspect of these kind of movies that, they're there to entertain and they're there to make money. And the movies that like she was kind of angling for in the video or in the article, we don't know, but we kind of suspect that they would not have quite the audience that say Spider-Man or Avengers Endgame. And that's so to me it was just like her lobbying for an entertainment industry the way she wishes it could be.
The last thing that these leftists think about is economic viability.
Well, you got that right.
They couldn't care less. They're like, the movies are supposed to inform people and educate them. If people wanted education, they'd go to school. If they want to be entertained, they go to a damn movie. It's ridiculous, and just God, it kills me.
I'm of the opinion that the there's kind of a broader implication for all of this, and now ostensibly cops and superheroes and firefighters and everybody else are supposed to be upholding. Now obviously it gets applied subjectively, but it's an objective set of standards that is applied to kind of society at large. This is what you do. This is what you don't do. This is what we've agreed is acceptable. This is what we have agreed is unacceptable. Obviously, the application of that gets done subjectively. But the idea is but there are objective kind of goals and morality and ethics and everything that is kind of applied across all of these things. And this seems like in most of the cases, these arguments against cops, against superheroes now, against whatever the hell else they're going to pull out later, it is about removing those objective standards on what is acceptable and unacceptable in order to rewrite new standards.
See, I think that they're trying to remove positive portrayals of law enforcement. And so that's where I'd say, if you want to take cops off the air, first 48, I guess those are real cops. Obviously, this is a real issue that people are dealing with. But when we start, tying in, Paw Patrol characters, I think it's odd. But I guess they don't want kids to have a positive or, a perception of police officers. And then obviously you got to take it further because you can't stop with Chase from Paw Patrol. You got to go over and try and grab the big fish, which obviously is superheroes. I do want to say thank you very much to Josh, SSJ Future Gohan, for the 999 super chat. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Very generous of you. And if this is your first time on the channel, certainly subscribe. And if you're here enjoying the debate, the conversation, definitely give us a thumbs up. Obliterate the thumbs up button if you have a chance. She did go on to talk about a few other things. And the next point that she made, actually, Doc just hit on it, actually, and I guess he saw it as an issue as well. Batman and Punisher are representative of a larger problem in superhero narratives in that they lack oversight.
Yeah, I mean, they do. They lack oversight, but we've already done the oversight thing a number of times, from the Mutant Registration Act, the Superhero Registration Act, the Sokovia Accords in the movies. We've done it. I mean, we've already explored what happens when this is done. They did the initiative at Marvel. They did, okay, maybe DC hasn't done it as much, but Marvel's played with this concept a half dozen times at this point. And what else do we need? I mean, some people agree, some people don't agree. There, the end.
On the street level, Batman has been a number of times. All you have to do is, like, something happens to Commissioner Gordon, somebody steps in, and then they have a problem with the Batman, and it happens in the movies too, where he's not working. I mean, we say that he works sort of loosely, connectively with the police force, but he has to hide in the shadows all the time. There was a really good Gotham Central issue where they had to actually hire a civilian to turn on the bat light or the signal, because if anybody in the police department were to do it, they would get found out, and it would say, "Oh, hey, we're really we're actively courting the Batman's help," that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. So there have been times when even DC's looked at that part of it.
Well, and there's certainly oversight on a lot of the Marvel, heroes, that they're part of the Shield or Avengers. It's not like they're just always operating on their own.
And usually when that does, it's the heroes that are like, oh, damn, government's getting in our way again, that type of thing.
It's definitely not portrayed as a positive as far as superheroes, going out and superheroing.
I mean, yeah, look at Ant-Man. He's a criminal. He's a crook. And he saved everybody. So,
I think you hit the nail on the head, Wes, earlier when you talked about removing the positive portrayal of the cops. I think that was the part I kind of jumped over in the beginning, and that's why you're seeing things like Paw Patrol removed, shows like Cops, Live PD, the things that this article mentions, because they don't want people seeing the other side of the coin. They just the argument here that's being portrayed on a world stage is that cops are evil, and so if you have any instance of law enforcement of apprehending criminals and that sort of that is portrayed as a good thing, then that goes against the narrative that they're trying to paint. And what's interesting here is then they go to this vigilante argument. Well, we'll look at people like Punisher, see how bad that is, and it's like, Well, no, Punisher is an example of when you don't
He's
have
a
law
serial
enforcement.
killer.
Right. Well, yeah, but he's a representation of what's exactly happening right now on the streets. When you take away the law, when you do things like the Chaz, guess what? People take the law into their own hands, and they start becoming the law. And that's what the Punisher was. The Punisher was an example of like the law's not working. Like the cops aren't doing what they're supposed to do, so I'm gonna do it. And he did it, yes, in villainous ways, and there was different, nuances to that discussion, but ultimately they're trying to now paint and see, look how bad superheroes are. Look, they're just these big bad vigilantes, and it's like, no, these are actually characters that are behaving if you were intellectually honest, would fit your side of the argument, because you don't want cops. You think cops are bad, and so now what you see on the streets today of people taking the law in their own hands, that's what these guys represent. But now you're painting them as bad too. You just can't have it any way. It's really just, when you boil it down, all their arguments become nonsense, and it just becomes like a child throwing a temper tantrum, and there's no legit argument anymore. It's just bad, things are bad, cops bad, I don't get my way, wah.
Yes, I mean, it mostly comes down to, I don't like other people having any authority to tell me what to do.
Bingo, yeah.
I mean, hey, look, I get that. I'm about as anti-authority as you could fucking get. I just don't like people telling me what to do. But I have to tolerate it, and I have an objective set of morals and ethics that, even if it's something that I want to do, if it violates those standards, I restrain myself from doing, because I know that it's a bad thing to do. But most people aren't like that.
Yeah, but don't you, there are obviously people out there that have a negative opinion or negative experiences with police officers.
Oh,
do
God,
you
yeah.
think is it fair to just say, well, that's just your experience. Most everybody else has a healthy respect or appreciation for police officers. I do think it's dangerous, and I do think it's unfortunate that in these times there are people in the population, not just because they've been told police are bad, but through legitimate real life experiences, are afraid of police.
And I totally understand that, but at the same time, I got to ask, whose experience? If we're just going by experience, whose experience wins? The people that had bad experiences with cops, or the people that have good? If we're just going
you
by,
hope that it leads to a conversation, and we can come up with a set of standards that police have to adhere to.
absolutely,
That will hopefully have a positive effect and alleviate a lot of these situations. Obviously, you will never be able to fix everything, because these are people in those uniforms, and people are inherently flawed. At least that's what I think. And that's why we get to this oversight. Like, when I think of oversight, do I really want government oversight on Superman? With the way that the politically charged climate in America today, do I want one side or the other to have control of somebody like Superman? Absolutely not. That would scare the crap out of me.
yeah.
But that's what they're pushing towards now, because they want, it's like the Ministry of Truth, and we're right in that area now. And the irony of that is they want the government to regulate these things, but who's the government? Oh yeah, it's Donald Trump. It's like the people that wanted to strip the Second Amendment, give our guns to the government. That means we.
And now they hate the cops.
Donald Trump. So yeah, now they hate the cops. So I guess we would end up with we'd end up with complete lawlessness in where the people that are the strongest would be in charge, because they're the ones with the clubs, and they'd be able to beat the crap out of everybody. It's just.
So
maybe that's what we need to do. Just eventually we have to pull that Band-Aid off if everybody's going to be like standing up and saying no more cops. It's like, well, let's go a month and let you see what happens when there isn't any. They'll take a break.
It's been a week in Minneapolis.
We do have some super chats here, fellas. I do want to say thank you very much to Club Cosplay, the Nerds Nightclub. Oh, is that going to show up? There it is, for the $2 super chat. We need cops to be heroes. And I agree with that. And it's like I said, it's too bad that we are in a flawed world where not everyone that puts on that uniform is going to have a heroic persona about them, or even use their power heroically. Hopefully, we do get to a place where everyone can be, happy with the police force that we have, not be afraid of them. I don't think we'll ever get there, but I think we can certainly improve it over time, and hopefully, we will actually. This will lead to discourse and conversation, and we can actually start fixing a lot of this, because I think right now, the way things are going, I don't see it actually improving much. Those are just my opinions. Obviously, I could be completely off base. We do have another $9.99 super chat from Josh, aka SSJ Future Go Hand. This only gives me more motivation to do more scholarship on the positive moral lessons that superheroes give us. These people claim to be subjective, but they're objective and only see their side. And I definitely see there's definitely some truth to that. Breen, it feels like, or is Breen still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. It feels like everybody's, rather than talking, they only want to hear their side. It feels like everybody wants to kind of step back into their own echo chamber nowadays.
Yeah. And we see it, you're in your bubble, and let's just say, like, from my point of view, from a comic store, if Batman doesn't sell well for me, that doesn't mean Batman doesn't sell well everywhere else. And that's how easy an echo chamber can be. Just because of one instance in my life, and I think everybody else is witnessing the same thing. It just isn't the case. And yeah, echo chambers are the worst, obviously. You got to get alternate points of view.
Yeah. I mean,
so
that's one of the reasons.
Thinking about that, Doc, do you think that this article is important so people like Josh, who is doing vocation, I'm sorry, not vocation, but scholarly studies in this field, can go out there and maybe challenge that point of view, or have something to consider when they're doing their scholarship and applying those studies to these characters?
I guess. I mean, in a way of like, hey, here's something that's completely wrong, and I'm going to show you why it's wrong. Great, but this is the same problem we always have with, a lie can get halfway around the world before the truth gets its pants on. And, Josh would be giving a complete deconstruction of why everything in this article is completely horseshit. And the article was still published.
You agreed with a couple of the points, Doc.
I agree. I see where they're drawing the comparisons.
Yeah,
I don't agree with any of the
points. It's not all horseshit, then. You see where she's coming from.
No. Understanding how somebody gets from point A to point B and agreeing with it are not the same things. I can understand sociopaths. It doesn't make me think like a sociopath just because I understand how they function. No, but at the same time, Josh could destroy every single word in this article, and this article was still written in time and went out to millions of people, and what Josh writes will go out to a small amount of academics.
Fortunately, this writer has been ratioed to the point of just obliteration. And I just looked at it. I'm like, oh my god!
You know what that means? That it got a massive amount of
it
reach.
got a lot of it got a lot of reach, and it got a lot of interaction, and that's why they float this stuff out there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Hey, we're here on my channel talking about it.
Yeah, they're trying to normalize the idea of this.
It's about shifting the Overton window.
Yeah, and boy, how far I saw a graph the other day how far the Democrats have the left have moved to the left. And I'm not going to say all Democrats, because some Democrats have went, oh my God, this is insane, and they've jumped over to the Republicans. But yeah, you've got how the left has moved so far over to the left that now that they're like on the other side of Sweden. They're like on the other side of the far left groups in Europe now, and it's really shocking.
Well, if you look at that map, you'll see that everything moved to the left, and those Democrats that jumped over to the right actually just stayed where they were.
Probably,
yes.
Probably the Republican. Well, look at the Republican congressman. Look at the Republican congressman that, the Democrat congressman that joined the Republicans, and then there's several more that are talking about moving over and it's an umbrella party. It always has been, and that's not weird. It's not abnormal.
Mm-hmm. So I do want to say thank you very much to Josh for supporting the channel. It's very generous of you. We do have another super chat from Cliff Elor, $9.99. Very generous of you. Thank you for supporting the channel. So much to say about this, but heroes and cops are so different. Hero is what we all strive to be in life. You can't really compare both, and that's what my kind of point is a superhero for the most part. I don't want to be Punisher. I think that's a direction that we're you're going too far, but. Really, and I think Breen can attest to this, a superhero should be something that you should strive to be, because morally, they're probably so
anchored.
Yes, that they're above what a normal person that is flawed is able to achieve. And similar to, like, if you think about, I know Kevin Smith compares it to religion a lot. It's definitely not the same thing in my opinion, but there is some similarities where you're being given a view of something that you should strive to be.
Yeah, the superhero is just the projection of what you as a person, should, want to be in life, and you can never be that, but they're like the the bar that you can't reach, but that's what you should strive for in ways that you can. And I said we're never going to be able to fly, and punch planets and things like that, but it's what you can do in your everyday life, and they're like but again, they're not real. I mean, they are fictional characters, so applying real world analogies to them only works to a point, because again, they are fictional forms of entertainment. And the idea of a hero, yes, the idea of a superhero, you would need to keep in its perspective. They are just vehicles for entertainment,
and they're basically American mythology. There are things you're supposed to learn lessons, but you shouldn't think that one day you're going to be Superman, because that's unattainable.
Yeah, that kid in the beginning of Kick-Ass found that out.
Yes. That was an interesting movie where he kind of tried to bring the idea into the real world and flesh it out. That's actually a pretty good movie. So I do want to say thank you to Cliff Elor for the $9.99 super chat. That's very generous. Thank you for contributing to the discourse right here on Thinking Critical YouTube. We have another one from Cliff as well, $4.99. Very generous. We need more nuance in these conversations. I do agree with that. But this article is a leap. It's a distraction to what's going on, and we're all falling for it. And I agree with you there. Obviously, we are talking about it here on the channel. It got an enormous amount of reach by being ratioed, and people shared it around. Like, can you believe how stupid this is? But it certainly did. It did reach a massive audience. Probably got a ton of clicks. Therefore, it did generate a lot of revenue. And so, that's why you're probably going to get more stuff like this.
Yeah, it's just clickbait. I mean, I don't know if
but it's got that time. It's got that time association, so it feels more legitimate.
It does, definitely. And, we were talking about how a person can write for online time, and then they can just say, hey, I work for Time. You don't know that it was just an online, thing, a clickbait article or something like that. I don't know if it was necessarily, I mean, it seems like right now, cops and, people with badges are getting attacked, whether, justly or not. But I don't know if this article is necessarily pushing that concept so that it can happen for superheroes, so that they get canceled, or if it's just, striking, a hot button subject right now, topic, so that people will pay attention. I don't know how much, I here's something. I don't know how much reality is actually in that person's article when they're writing it.
I think a good portion of it is clickbait, but I think there's another portion of it is that she would like the clout as the person that kind of changed superhero movies or even took them down.
Sure. If I mean, again, I don't know what that looks like, but if you can put that on if you can wear that badge, you could look pretty cool. Look what I started. I got this trend going. Isn't it great?
Well, if you read reading the article, she did not. It's not that she wants to cancel superheroes. It's she wants to cancel certain superheroes. Because if you saw the article, there was a few superheroes that she was complimentary of. And when she was talking about the movie The Black Panther, she even said, there's a part where she was talking about their father. She goes, sure, they broke the law and committed violence, in trying to attain their goals, but basically it was for the greater good. So, I think she's striving for a world where, we go to the next Kamala Khan movie, or I mean, it's basically, I said, again, it just looked to me like she does not want straight white male superheroes anymore, and that's I don't think honestly, I don't think the article really was much more than that, because she did spend some time on Cops, but she made sure to mention the Ava DuVernay show that's gonna show Cops in a poor light. So go ahead, Ash.
Oh, I was just gonna say that was my point. Like, it's fine to have cops as long as cops are being shown to do bad. It'll be fine to have superheroes as long as we can show them being bad. If we can have the boys, that's not critical. This article doesn't criticize the boys, because look at how awful that is. That's painting it all in a bad light. But that's Superman. That guy's a problem.
Yeah,
but look who the most popular character in The Boys is. She's the hero that keeps trying to do the right thing.
Well, I get that. I'm arguing on the side. I'm trying to.
I'm just saying the irony, of
no, right. I mean,
that they would point that as, because I've seen others point that as saying, this is what this is what these superheroes would really be like. And it's like, no, you can see who the most popular character on the show is, and it's not Homelander. No, it's
there's a difference.
Girl
again,
trying to do the right thing.
These are fantasy characters; they're fiction, and obviously we as fans of heroes and comics, we naturally like the idea of a great character who actually has true virtue. We're going to be fans of that girl on the show. The show is trying to portray what reality, how humans really would be, and that's a different story. My point is they don't criticize it because this article comes from a false premise. And one of the mistakes that people like us we make, because we're at least I believe all of us trying to be genuine, is we assume that other people are coming from a genuine standpoint, and it's not. This article is a complete disingenuous, intellectually dishonest point, but we're inclined to give people that credit of like, well, because we're trying to make intellectually honest arguments, that they are too, and it's not. This article is a fraud. This is a person who's just pushing their agenda of their virtue signaling, because they themselves lack virtue. They just want to tear down everything that shows how bad their point of view is, and it all must go. And that's how I see it. And in my opinion, when you see it in that light, the article appears differently. You realize, oh yeah, it's all to shape an agenda.
Okay, so we do have another super chat. Thank you very much to Cliff Elor. Very generous of you. We do have one from Club Cosplay, the Nerds Nightclub, $5. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. V for Vendetta by Alan Moore. People shouldn't be afraid of their government. The government should be afraid of their people. That certainly is directly from the founding fathers. Pele, what do you think about V for Vendetta and Alan Moore as far as government? I should be afraid of the people. The power should reside in the people.
Oh yeah, the power definitely should reside in the people. The irony is that Alan Moore is like this raging Marxist, but he understood that that when you have absolute power in the hands of the government, you have corruption, and unfortunately, the left has kind of lost that memo, and they want to collect absolute power within their figures, but. That was a time. I mean, you had to look at when Viva Vendetta was written. It was written during the time in which everyone was scared of the authoritarian right and the church. That the church would become the authority figure through the authoritarian right. And now it's kind of now it's morphed over into being the authoritarian woke left. And we've run into a situation where I don't think Alan Moore would write something like that today. Because he would think that but the left is the right side of history, and it's ironic that V would be such an incredible hero now for people that want, libertarian-minded individuals, and he's changed into being their type of hero now, whereas it was not the way that Moore intended at all. So
seems to happen with Alan Moore's best works a lot.
Yeah, it does. He speaks to everybody without really intending to, I think. Probably
why he's a good writer.
He's a great writer. He's a fantastic writer, and that's the mark of a fantastic writer, I think, is they speak to everyone, even though their intentions may not be quite so genuine. But yeah, government absolutely should be afraid of people. That's the reason why the Second Amendment exists. The Second Amendment exists so that we can put a check upon the government.
All right. So. Not a Second Amendment debate here. This is a comic book channel, and we are going to move on.
You did say fearing the people, and that's why they would fear the people. But anyway, yeah, you're right. Okay.
And this is a spoiler alert. Kenneth Dowling, $10 super chat, talking about Batman 93. Obviously, I did review it right here on the channel. And next week, I will be reviewing Batman 94. He says, in Batman 93, I think Joker brought the designer back to life using the Dionysium from Batman Endgame, or the element when the Court of Owls used directed talents. Obviously, we were confused as how Joker was reanimating corpses. Was that a robot? But he believes they were using an element from the Court of Owls. Anybody agree with that?
I hope so. It'll be worth more money later.
Sounds like a good
I got
theory.
those slabbed.
So we're going to speculate on Dionysium now.
I gotta hand it to Kenneth for $10 to spoil stuff. Like that's just the new way to do things.
Well, I certainly appreciate the support for the channel.
Yeah,
and I believe you might have put that into the review as well. I think I pinned it, so it's been out there. But I do appreciate that was an interesting issue. I could see how some people would read Batman 93 and feel really deflated, like I invested in this designer character. It turned out he'd been dead all along, and it all was just prelude to Joker War. But I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. Not as good as 92, but certainly a worthwhile read, in my opinion. So thank you very much to Kenneth Dowling for supporting the channel. Very generous of you. So we've kind of we've gone off the tracks a little bit. So I'm going to bring us back. I'm going to talk about the third point that the author made, and this is when she's talking about Peter Parker is a fan of the police, even fantasizing about being Spider Cop. He spends much of this game fixing surveillance towers for NYPD, talking about the Spider-Man PlayStation 4 game. And I think that's another issue they do have with superheroes. And I think they even talk about Miles Morales, his father, being a police officer and him not questioning, his moral code and stuff like that. Because even if you're a superhero, a teenage superhero, you're not supposed to, show reverence or appreciation for the police, because there are bad police out there. So we have to spread it around and treat them all badly.
Well, what's going to happen now? Miles' dad has to die in the comics.
Well, I mean,
they're going to have to kill him off.
Wasn't half of the appeal of Jim Gordon is that he's a good cop in a city full of corrupt everybody's?
Same thing with Daredevil. Whenever they show the police in New York City with Daredevil, they are always, it's the most corrupt organization in the world.
Yeah, everybody's corrupt. Everybody, and the whole point is that Jim Gordon is the shining beacon of what a cop should be. And that Daredevil. Yes, they do this. It's not like the comics have ignored the fact that there's bad cops. They've been doing this for literally all the way back to the early issues of Superman in Action Comics, where he's fighting against corrupt landlords and cops and politicians and stuff like that. This isn't anything new. No, go ahead.
I was say, but again, I feel like we're making that mistake of approaching their premise from intellectual honesty. That you're saying, what isn't this the way? You're right. Everything you're saying is 100% right. but they don't read the comics. They don't care about the comics. They're not even trying to make a genuine argument. They're just trying to paint their agenda. And what they're trying to do is cherry pick and grab any little example that they can try, and they can twist it to be like, how do my agenda? Okay. Yep. This will support my argument. And it's not genuine. Like, you're 100% right. Everything you're saying, and everything, all of us comic fans, we read comics, we all get it. Right. And then for the few that maybe that are on the outskirts and maybe do read comics, they might argue and they go, well, Jim Gordon's a straight white male who cheats on his wife and he's drinks, like, he's problematic. He's got a, like, they'll still find a way to demonize this guy because, comic writers came in and said, what, let's humanize Jim Gordon. Let's show the man that he is, and he's got faults, but he's got to try to be better and fix those faults. But nope, that because they're disingenuous, they'll come from an angle and be like, well, see, he was problematic the whole time. You can't have characters that aren't 100% perfect because they'll tear them apart. And then when the character is 100% perfect, like Superman, that's a problem too, because he's too virtuous and he exposes how vile they themselves are. So they got to be canceled. There's no really fixing this because their argument isn't one from intellectual honesty. It's like I said, it's just a kid throwing a temper tantrum. The principal at school is always a bad guy. Every kid at school thinks the principal's bad because he's the one that stops them from doing what they want to do. He's the daddy figure. And these people, that's what I want to get. These people have daddy issues. They're throwing fits in the streets. They're infantile brains. And this is what happens when we let people, I think we raise kids with no discipline. We raise them with participation trophies. We raise them with such wealth. Americans in a world stage are so well, even the poorest American, obviously not the guys on the streets, but if you have a home, even if the poorest people at home still usually have air conditioning, probably maybe cable, got a PlayStation, you probably have a car, you got internet access, you probably have a smartphone. There's people living in the world that got to walk 25 miles a day just to get water. But
uphill, both ways.
They don't have any concept of that. To them, it's like, I'm oppressed. And it's like, maybe relatively your life isn't as good as other Americans, but you still live really, really good. And these people out in the street, they're not the ones living really bad in America. These are the ones that went to, some big league school, $200,000 education, and no scholarship that just mom and dad paid for. They don't need to get jobs, so they can sit and riot out in the streets all day long, because they don't have anything to worry about, and they don't have to worry about paying the bills because they can just go live at home. They live so privileged that they can afford to behave the way that they're doing. And ironically, they point the finger to everyone else. And if you take a look at a preteen child, a young kid, even like below the age of 10, that nature of everything, the world revolves around them. This is something that normal people break free from as you become an adult and you start getting independence and you start get your first job and you start maybe thinking about moving out after you graduate high school or graduate college or whatever. These are normal ways that you transition, but these people don't. They're still living in that infantile point of view of the world. And the person that wrote this article, like I said, it's not genuine.
They should read some comic books if they have all this time.
Bingo.
Yes. Maybe it'll teach them some objective morality. We do have another super chat, though, from SSJ Future Gohan, a.k.a. Josh. Yes, and that's why Gordon is good. Dick Grayson was a cop in Chuck Dixon's Nightwing run, and he stood up to the terrible cops and often even took them down. And yeah, I think that's something that really needs to be... I think that needs to be offered as almost a counterpoint to these kind of arguments, because it seems like this article basically just wants to pretend like, superheroes functioning in similar capacities as cops or assisting cops or anything like that. And with the cop bad narrative, that just because they're not constantly fighting the cop system and sometimes providing assistance, that, they are implicitly approving of all the bad behavior of cops, no matter how, small of a percentage it may be. And, having somebody like Dick Grayson actually taking down bad cops or standing up to them, I think it can be offered as a great counterpoint to this article.
Hey, real quick, Chillmonger makes a comment, says these people say who you really mean, Ash. I don't know who you are, Chill, and I don't want to take you out of context or wrong, but when I say these people, I'm talking about the Antifa people, the communists in the streets that are saying death to America. That's who I'm saying. So if you're interpreting it as something different, I want a chance to clarify what I mean. It's not a these people based on what the color of your hair, the color of your eyes, the color of your skin, or anything irrelevant like that. It's an ideological aspect. It's the child-brained imbeciles running around the streets throwing temper tantrums. And
you've got to look at I guess what everybody's thinking about. You've got the Black Lives Matter movement, but look who's hijacked it. You've got the white Marxists on the left that have hijacked it, and to the point that even the BLM founders and leaders, well, not founders, but the leaders just quit. I was watching the Tim Pool video last night. They quit because they're like, there's an ideological element that's extremely dangerous and violent that has hijacked this movement, and we can't be a part of it anymore. And it's always those crazies, the extremists, that those people like Antifa, I think they even got different names now because they don't want to use that name because it's been marked as a terrorist organization, but they're still the same terrorists no matter what name they use. And those are the people, and make no mistake, they don't want to make anything better. They want to make everything worse. They want to make everything worse to the point to where they want to cause chaos to the point to where they're in charge, and so they can make everything worse and enrich themselves. That's all it's about.
It feels like we might have gone off the topic of comics again. But I do want to say thank you very much to Josh for the $4.99 super chat. Very good points, especially about Nightwing. Certainly going up against dirty cops, and that certainly is a prevailing, a message throughout a lot of comic books, especially with the street level heroes. Is that the cops aren't? You can't trust them. They're dirty. They're bought and paid for, and even politicians to where they have to kind of fight the system through that means. Very good point. We do have another super chat from Dark Admiral March Hare, $4.99. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. This is a product of children that weren't told often enough, or they weren't given undue adulation. Now they think they know what's better than the common rabble. Well, there's certainly a lot of dividing lines. It feels like the divide gets more and more pronounced every day. Everybody wants. It's all about name calling. We just heard, Ash say not very nice things about people that were Antifa. Now, I'm not a big supporter, but I personally don't think that every one of them is brain dead or anything like that. But I wish that's why
I was making generalities, and I don't.
Yes, that's the problem, Dash. You make too many generalities. That's why you got to talk about specific situations and people, because then you generalize people, and then we get people in the comments saying, "Well, why don't you just say what you mean when you say these people?"
Well, some people want to take those things the way they want to do, and I try to clarify.
That's why you can't put yourself in a position to be taken that way.
Well,
you have to talk about specifics.
I apologize for being human.
Well, hey, no reason to apologize. I'm just saying. That's how you get yourself into a mess like that.
You're always going to get in a mess, no matter what. People want to take you disingenuous. If people want to hear things, you're all that's going to happen. That's what this whole article is. It's taking it. If people want to take you for bad faith when you have good faith, there's nothing you can do. You can try to express and be as honest as you can. Say, here's what I'm trying to say. Well, it's not what I'm hearing. Well, I'm sorry that you're hearing that. I'm trying to be.
Well, you got to realize other people have a different perspective. Like when I do a video on something, half the time there'll be like one moment where I address one little part of the story, but the video is not about that part of the story. I'm actually talking about this. But people will be upset about that one little moment because that was what they were interested to begin with. They weren't interested in the rest of the thing about the Jeff Johns. Yes, I'm talking about these people, the ones that get upset when I talk about Jeff Johns with the allegations against him about he flirted with a woman that was
just harassing you, dude.
Yeah, in charge of a fan site. People were like, oh, but he treated Ray Fisher like crap. Well, the video really wasn't about Ray Fisher. That was just providing context to where this allegation came from. That wasn't what the video was about. But people got mad at me because I didn't stress, go into details of that strongly enough. So everyone has a perspective, and they will get upset on the details that they want that they find more offensive. So I've learned.
This super chat, one of in U.S. Talking about a dividing line. The one I noticed that people in my age bracket often talk about is the participation award trophies.
Absolutely,
that everybody gets, these days, or at least that's what we say. And it feels like, they're not told, like it says here, the children aren't told no enough. They're just given participation awards. Anything they have to say or do just means, is valid as anything else. And talking about this article, it kind of feels that same thing. It's like, oh, I put it out there. It's important because I said it. Yeah.
Well, it's one of the things I talked about. I think it was the last Comics Aficionados that there's definitely differences within the generations, and the younger generation that we have now, they've been told almost their entire life. And this was my experience, and I am going to generalize. With my experience working with younger people when I was in the military, is that you are going to change the world. You are going to change the world. My generation, I think we were mostly told you can do whatever you want. You can be anything. You can be an astronaut. You can be a pilot. Whatever, and then the generation after us is you are going to change the world. So if they're not changing the world, they don't feel fulfilled. So that's why you see a lot of these things, is because this feels like you are going to change the world. You're going to take down superheroes, and the way that they could be portraying cops in a positive light. And I think that's a lot of the divides and a lot of the conflict comes from absolutely different points of view on what could be fulfilling in life. All right, so let's get back to another super chat. This is from Ryan Wilson, $4.99. Do you need to be talking about DC to earn DC money they're sending you?
That's a good point, Wes.
Am I getting money from DC?
If you are, you damn well ain't sharing any.
Yeah, let's get the DC money flowing. DC,
are they
if you
sending
want
me those Batman comps?
I need some Batman comps. I think I'm pretty critical of DC. I think they are on the upswing right now, but yeah, I'm certainly more critical of Marvel right now, the way they've handled things, post COVID-19 pandemic.
I promise you guys, people, from all the discussions Wes and I sometimes have in the backgrounds, like Wes is very critical of DC. Like sometimes I'm just like, dude, you're too critical. So
he's as critical as them as I am of Marvel. And I think it's because we both love those companies so much that we want them to be so much better than they actually are.
Sometimes you come into discussion and maybe you've only watched the channel for a month or two, and it happens to be a time when DC's doing everything really great. So we're like, yeah, they're the awesome, and then you miss all the time where Wes was crapping all over You're the Villain. It's like,
I did drop basically every DC ongoing title I was reading because of You're the Villain, because I was tired of it.
Well, the channel isn't called Thinking in Generalities.
Wow.
That was
I do appreciate it. So, Ryan Wilson, if those DC dollars ever come in, I'm sending them to you, buddy. You're gonna get some of that DC money too, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. We do have another $4.99 super chat from Atomic Hound. I think the author has a DC 5G writing gig canceled and is getting revenge. Well, I mean, perhaps. I think DC 5G is still going to happen in a very small way.
Yeah, DC is the only one really putting anything out right now also. So
very true.
If we're trying to talk positively about comics, it's just DC right now.
It is, yeah. You got Joker War coming up, DC, death metal. We got some black label stuff that's cool. What's going on with Marvel?
Yeah, well, and then the thing is like if you're just totally griping about something over and over again, yeah, it can be exciting or fun to watch, but not everybody that watches all the time necessarily wants to hear that. You got to have a different beat every now and then.
Yeah. I bet you Tom King and Brian Michael Bendis don't want me getting any of that DC money. I may have been a little hard on those guys. And Andy Corey.
Oh,
Perch just absolutely obliterated on Twitter yesterday.
You can never be hard enough on Andy Corey. It's not possible.
Did you see what Perch did to him on Twitter?
No, but please.
So Andy Corey had this like big 8-tweet thing where, he was talking about bar cons, when everybody's at the Comic-Con and they go to the bar and that's how they get jobs. And he's like, generally speaking, from what I've seen, that's not how it works. You got to get in there to network and stuff. And he goes on this thing, and then Perch is like, please read the following, tweets. And then heed none of the advice. This is the man that hired multiple sexual offenders to work for DC and managed them during his stint there. And he just completely trashed him. It was a work of art.
Oh, good old Perch.
Perch took no prisoners on that tweet.
If there's anyone in the comics industry that needs spanking harder than Andy Corey, I don't know who they are.
Maybe Eric Esquivel did that.
Maybe that's how he got his job.
Sorry.
Because I mean, I've never seen anyone more incompetent at their job than Andy Corey, and that's saying something with some of the Marvel editors out there.
Well, if his goal was to end the Vertigo line,
then he was ultra successful.
Well, there you go.
Because if there's one thing, I mean, if Andy Corey's job is to actually sell comic books, then he is the biggest failure in the entire industry. He's supposed to be the editor, so he's supposed to make sure the comics are ready for production. And also pick talent that sells things when he hires.
I don't think anyone's ever bought a comic because Andy Corey edited it.
No. But
they certainly didn't buy a comic book because Andy Corey edited it.
But they did buy. His job is to hire people who buy comics because they wrote it, and he's very good at picking people and hiring people for books that people will not read because they wrote it. So no, he's if his job is to actually create a positive, being like a manager or a general manager for a sports team as an editor, then he's terrible at it. But if his job is to ruin comics, which is what I believe that all of Comics Alliance was designed to do, then he's very successful.
Maybe he could get a job writing for Time Online.
Maybe he could. He can. I mean, but the thing is, though, the magazine industry is already dead. So I wonder if he could actually kill something that's already dead. He's shown that he's able to kill things that are alive.
I was alluding to this article trying to kill comics. Like, he's good at it. That was a bad joke.
Technically, I will say this for Vertigo: when he got a hold of it, it was already on its last legs, and DC had already kind of killed it off when they decided to take the creator rights away from the creators, where they didn't have the TV and movie distribution for their original stories and creations. And then people were like, "Nah, I'll go to Image."
And yet, after Andy Corey was removed and the Vertigo label was destroyed, there are now more Vertigo-like comics produced by DC than there was when Vertigo was being run by Andy Corey. They're actually selling more comics that should be a Vertigo label comic that aren't because the label's gone. But let's face it, it's a Vertigo book.
I don't know. What besides Last God?
All the Joe Hill stuff.
Yep, all the Joe Hill books.
Okay, I'll give you
that.
They
had to
get
his name on it because it sells better than Vertigo. People know Joe Hill, I guess.
I guess there's 6 comics on that one. But I don't think Young Animal was ever going to be Vertigo.
No, Young Animals. No one knows what that is.
All right, so let's get back to the topic at hand and like the real big the end of this. Like, are people actually going to listen to the writer of this? is Hollywood going to be willing to drop their best-selling movies in the world, especially after they're returning from this massive shutdown from COVID-19, because they're going to equate superheroes to cops?
No.
They probably need the money.
No, they're not going to. But the only function of this article is to push the slope, push the idea of eliminating authority a little bit further down the slippery slope, and hope that it permeates culture.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, keep in mind, they're not trying to eliminate shows or movies or the things that are about cop. I mean, the article even talks about Ava DuVernay's new project, that Leap thing, which is about painting cops in a bad light. I don't think that Disney is going to be like, oh, we're not going to make superhero movies. What we're going to do is we're going to make superhero movies that show how problematic superheroes are. Like, they're just changing the tone.
Absolutely out there. Watchmen exists.
Right, but
Boys
I mean,
is
changing
on
the Marvel universe
Netflix.
to be like, now we're going to get to watch movies of the Marvel universe where it just throwing at our face like how problematic our heroes really are, and we're going to see the stories change their direction.
Captain America, Captain Marvel, they made that movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
the first step is showing problematic superheroes.
This movement didn't start yesterday.
And it's weird because if you think about movies, like there are movies that certainly portray cops in a bad light. You think about Crash, won an Oscar for, certainly didn't portray cops very well. Then you think about like NYPD Blue. I don't know how many beatings I watched Sipowicz, confessions I watched Sipowicz beat people into, but it was a lot of them.
The Shield.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like
most Hollywood movies. I mean, have you seen the movie In the Watch?
Good.
Look at David
But
Ayer's.
then you watch,
movies.
Law and Order SVU. I mean, it's the most popular cop show on television, and then you've got Blue Bloods, the second most popular cop show on television. And they portray cops as better people. So
I thought the Wahlberg was kind of a dirty cop when the show started.
Yeah, he kind of
I haven't watched it in like 8
back
years.
and forth.
Yeah.
He kind of goes back and forth, but generally tries to be better and then just massively screws up.
Are we going to stop liking like TV shows and movies about bad cops though? Because now that we're talking about it, there's a lot of them out there.
I'm thinking it's going to be enhanced.
HBO had like True Detective, right? They have bad cops in that. Bad Lieutenant is a classic, a movie. And
no, that's what I'm arguing is that's going to be the norm. It's the good cop stuff that's going to be phased out. It can't show cops doing good stuff. We always have to show cops as the villains so that society keeps seeing them.
But we love the Dirty Harrys still, even to this day.
We do.
He might work outside the law, but
the people that like this article don't.
Well, that's true. What I'm thinking about this article is, will we see superhero movies where they try and act outside the law a little bit more, or is it just going to get dumbed down and just be more like the Avengers movie where they're just fighting a big old monster, space
Probably
aliens?
Safer.
It would be safer, yeah.
Marvel's already announced that they're pushing their stuff cosmic and space battles and stuff. And
that way they don't have to deal with it.
And you see this happening in comics too. Like in the comics, it's not about the characters being heroes and extolling virtue. It's about just being pro wrestlers, and it's just about battling. And it doesn't even, they're getting away from the whole good versus evil. It's just my team versus your team, and we're going to battle, and that's how it's going. And didn't you take that into space? So you take it away from the planet, and you can diversify, or not diversify, but you can separate it so people aren't making the correlation that these are even heroes anymore. They're just super warriors.
Stone Cold ruined it for everybody. I do want to say thank you very much to Kenneth Allen for the $10 super chat. In this article, she criticizes the MCU, saying the Avengers operate without any oversight. She obviously did not see Captain America: Civil War, which tackles that very subject. Possibly my favorite MCU film. Certainly, it does, and there are different sides of whether or not a big superhero team should have oversight. Obviously, it was covered in the comics as well, and another Civil War story arc that I think is one of the better ones Marvel's done recently. But then you think about Civil War II, where you got Captain Marvel's imprisoning people and without trial and stuff like that. So I would say that they actually have tackled the slippery slope, at least in comics.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think there's just an entire group of people out there that can't. I don't think that there's any way that they can view Captain Marvel as anything but a villain, and it's because of what she's done. And I think her name is basically tarnished in comics forever, and it's the reason why there's so much pushback against her. But this isn't new, and it's just interesting to see it come out from this angle from a hack, a journalistic hack, who's trying to use it as a tool to gain credit, gain
clout,
clout for
Internet
himself.
clout.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
all it is. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm. So, Doc, what do you think? Does there need to be more oversight of heroes?
We've done this so many goddamn times. Stop it.
I need oversight of the X-Men. I'm tired of the mutants going rogue.
Yeah, no. Okay, cool. Mutant Registration Act. We already know how
I'm reading Dawn of X right now, and they feel like the villains.
Yeah, well,
they're doing it themselves by having.
The UN needs to come into Krakoa and manage that island.
That'll be interesting.
Well,
Not human oversight.
Look, we already know how this goes because it goes Mutant Registration Act, then the camps, then the Sentinels, then Days of Future Past. We already know where the future goes with this. Between what they did in X Factor under Peter David, where with Jamie Madrox and what's her name, the one that knows stuff,
Layla Miller.
Yes, and all the Bishop future storylines, and then Days of Future Past, and all the ancillary related Days of Future Present, Days of Future Present Past Participle. And
for that.
Yep.
Well, before the pandemic, or before stores were closing and stuff like that, there was Outlawed that was coming out for Marvel. And so maybe that precedes all those other things first.
Yeah. But no, I mean, like, okay, cool. We're gonna regulate the mutants again. And we already know how this goes because it always goes the exact same way. I'm tired of reading that same story.
Yeah, it always ends up
All right,
with
Doc.
Nimrod.
Yes.
Thinking about that same story, are you excited for the new comic, the new version of God Loves Man Kills comes out this Wednesday?
Actually, I am. Mostly because I'm curious to see what they do to expand the original. I know that they're just adding some extra stuff.
Possibly the story that ruined X-Men as an action franchise and basically turned it into an analogy.
It did, because for the longest time, that was an out-of-continuity story. And then they added it in, I guess, around the time of whenever Claremont was on Extreme X-Men, and they did God Loves Man Kills 2.
It did.
That's when they kind of retconned it into history, because that was around the time of X2, X-Men United, whenever they added Stryker to the movie.
Mm-hmm. So I do want to say thank you very much to Kenneth Allen for supporting the channel. $10 is very, very generous of you to do that. We do have another super chat from KVI 999 super chat. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. There's nothing in there, but thank you very much. And if you have a question, just let me know and I'll pop it up here on the screen. We'll talk about it. But thank you very much for supporting the channel. Oh man, God Loves Men Kills is bad? No, it's excellent. It's classic. Yeah, it's the themes that are covered in that were so well done that they permeated X-Men ever since.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like Watchmen or Miracle Man or V for Vendetta, these kinds of books that are like, everybody looks to them as like, how you're supposed to do comics. And it's like, no, these are so good. Don't do these comics again.
Yeah. It was an attempt back when Marvel was just doing graphic novels. Or not just doing that was their new thing that they were doing. I think it was like the fifth one in the series of
think
graphic
so.
novels, and they wanted to be able to tell more realistic stories, use these characters to tell, in this particular case at least, a story
no
about
copyright
racism
here.
and things like that. That was fine in a one-off sense, out of continuity, but then the problem of God Loves Man Kills, at least from my particular point of view, is that 20 years later it would be used as this rallying flag to revolutionize or change comic books. And then when people say, wait, this isn't what this is supposed to be like, and oh, look at God Loves Man Kills 20 years ago, it's always been this way. And it's like, no, that was an exception to the rule.
Yes.
It wasn't the rule. And the comic book itself is great, but it wasn't meant to be. It was meant to be like, hey, let's take comics and do something different without actually changing comics.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's a phrase that I like to use whenever people do stuff like God Loves Man Kills, as great as they may be. There's a phrase that I kind of use in life. It's what you permit, you promote. And you can apply this kind of, it's kind of like a just dumb proverb that you can apply to your life in general. But when you permit something like God Loves Man Kills, as great as it may be, you also promote that theme being used ad nauseum forever after that.
That reminds me of another, I don't know if proverb's the right word, but like the Harry Callahan theory, and apply it to other lesser comic book writers. A man's got to know his limitations. Some writers just aren't suited to try to replicate things like God Loves Man Kills,
or The Watchmen, or Dark Knight Returns,
or
all the seminal moments where you're like, oh my goodness, I didn't think a comic book could be that. For some reason, today's authors think that's the only way a comic should be.
And most comic book writers just are not good enough to do it.
Everyone wants to be Alan Moore and Frank Miller, but most of them are Leo Williams.
But funny enough, they don't want to be
Howard.
Chris Claremont, who was able to do like 300 issues of X-Men in a row and do nice, tight stories where they're one-offs, they're heroic. Sometimes they would go play baseball, and sometimes they would tackle big themes. But for the most part, it was just an action franchise.
Oh, Wes, 300 issues. That just seems like work.
Yeah.
A few years.
I mean, no. But like, seriously, it's like all the current creators, they want to be Barry Bonds, getting up to home plate and hitting home run after home run and forgetting about all the goddamn times he struck out. And same thing with this. They when you're a home run hitter, you also strike out a lot. But nobody wants to be. But Claremont was like, to use another baseball analogy, he was basically your quintessential base hit, hitter. He'd get up the plate and he'd just get you a base hit every at bat. Sometimes
he'd knock it of comics.
Yeah, sometimes he'd knock it out of the park. Yeah, sometimes he'd knock it out of the park, but for the most part, he was just a guy that would advance the runners every single at bat.
Haven't you heard about sabermetrics, man?
Oh, F you!
Look at Mark McGwire. How many hits do you think
joking.
Mark McGwire had to go with all those home runs?
What was that?
How many hits do you think Mark McGwire had to go with all those home runs he hit? Well over 500 home runs.
Yeah.
How many hits do you think he had total?
I don't know. I can't remember that.
2,300.
Yeah.
It's pathetically low, but you're like, wow, like
it's all or
every
none for
4 or
him.
5 hits was a home run. That's insanity.
Yeah.
Sorry for bogging down the chat, people. We got off the nerd stuff. These guys couldn't even guess a number. But all right, let's keep going on. But I do think it's crazy. Like, Doc, where does it stop? Because when you're like, what if they do take superheroes down? Well, who's next? John Wick is essentially a superhero.
Yeah,
He's a man that something bad happens to. He has to come up and defend himself because the police are corrupt. And if he doesn't do it, they won't.
Wick goes next, like generally your action movie heroes. Definitely anybody that's military. Military goes after that. Actually, they may even go before, because at least superheroes wear some sort of uniform. whereas action heroes generally just wear normal people clothes. So you might actually get military before you get general action movies getting wiped out. But I would go with anything that glorifies the military, and then action heroes, then probably business people, anybody that's that glorifies businessmen. Mad Men would be basically dead.
Well, how many rich guys in movies are portrayed good anyway? They're all Gordon Gekko, aren't they?
There's a lot that are, but I mean, sometimes it's even just the small businessman that's getting creative in how they're. I mean, you don't do a lot of movies about business because it's not really that interesting. But
I watched The Big Short. It didn't seem very nice.
Yeah, but you'll get. I think
it's virtue. Anything with virtue will be attacked.
Yes, anything with virtue, anything with objective truths.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I learned all those. Well, I shouldn't say all those, but a lot of my original thinking came from reading Spider-Man and stuff like that. And he did run from the cops often.
Yeah, he was often painted as the bad guy, right? By J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah. So like, I don't know, man. Attacking superheroes.
Well, you will like. I agree with you. I'm on your side, but again, I would remind you, like, these people aren't coming from a side of good faith,
right?
Like, you are approaching them with good faith. You're like, but superheroes are so good. Look what they did for me, and I'm with you. I'm the same way. They fantastic, effect on my life, but they don't see it that way. They see it as like, this is all terrible, bad stuff, and it must be torn down, like the statues all around us.
Yeah, and we see that with literature too. We're seeing that with a lot of television programs lately. The whole canceling of situational comedies on Netflix and whatnot. And the thing that's sad about those programs or these stories or words being changed in novels is that quite often they're put in there, or they're created because they're actually talking about a real message. If it's a comedy, they're going to use some comedy to alleviate the hard truths that they're spouting in the comedy, so that it's funny for people to enjoy also while they've got a message out there. If you take out characters or language or just episodes altogether, those things are going to be lost. I mean, I'm not saying, keep Confederate statues up necessarily. I'm just saying there is a history lesson to be learned from everything and if you just erase it, get it out of sight, out of mind, history repeats itself, that type of stuff. Not cool. Not cool at all.
Somebody made a comment in the comments. So what we're worried about is newspapers are being run by J. Jonah Jameson. They are, though. That's the problem.
Yep. That's where we are.
The media is entirely being run by J. Jonah Jameson.
Well, but to be fair, J. Jonah Jameson was very objective when it came to everything but Spider-Man.
Right.
Okay, and he had Robbie to keep him in line.
So I do want to say thank you to Kenneth Dowling for the $10 super chat. This article will have no traction. Superheroes in whatever form have endured and thrived for nearly a century. The love for the medium will survive any scrutiny and has survived all scrutiny. Well, I do agree with you, but I do think the characters will change, and I think the stories will change. We've already seen that with Marvel and DC, especially with Marvel. They went and they changed their entire superhero lineup like that just by a little bit of pressure from nobody. And when I say nobody, I mean nobody.
Literally nobody.
Nobody anyone had ever heard of put pressure on them, and they bowed to the will of nobody in an instant. So if you actually do have people with real clout, with real any type of real gravitas behind them, like any type of movement, they will succumb to the pressure immediately.
Yep. They will.
Yeah, and I would
think. Go ahead.
No,
go.
Oh, I was gonna say I would caution people to focus on the fact that this is an article, and that's not going to gain any traction, and that may be very well true. I Kenneth is probably right. So the article's not gaining traction, but the reason I think we're discussing it here is not because this is an article in Time and Time is such a. It's because this is a reflection on what many other people, maybe not us, maybe not people in the chat, but many other people are thinking this way. There's a reason why this article was written, because there is an audience out there, small as it might be, that do think this way, and there are people that are listening to that audience, as small as that audience may be, and like Wes's point, they're making changes off, the proverbial 12 Twitter psychos, and we're seeing, and we've seen it. I mean, we've been seeing it in comics already. I made the point earlier, this movement didn't start yesterday. This is just another step in where we're going in a trajectory. And that's all I want to say.
Well, there are definitely groups out there that know that entertainment and media have huge influence on culture, and they've tried to seize that, and they try to change the narrative and the way we think about things. Like, think about this, Doc. When we were younger, there was a show out, and it was blasphemous, and it was just such a terrible take on families. It was called Married with Children.
Yeah,
and the father, Al Bundy, was such a complete dunce and moron. Like, he was funny to laugh at, but you think about where we've gone 20, 30 years later.
Every show is Married with Children.
Standard of what the way men and fathers are portrayed in media, especially on television.
Yes,
because that is the portrayal that they want out there for people to see, that fathers are morons, fathers are dunces, and you probably shouldn't listen to them.
Well, I look at this whole thing. I mean, yeah, I agree with you completely on that. But I look at this as a little more insidious than I think other people do. And Kenneth brings a really good point up here that superheroes have endured and thrived for a century. But superheroes, at least, they are the American mythology. That America didn't have really, the way that like Europe and Asia and Africa and Australia, they had their own kind of mythologies. Superheroes are the American mythology. And the idea here, I think the other problem that you have here is that this article is about ripping down the American mythology.
Well, actually, I wrote a paper on this in college about the original American mythology was the Western.
Yeah.
And where's the evolution of that? You had the lone man with the badge.
Hey, goes Bill.
Out and, you had the lone man with the badge going out and trying to bring
order
justice to a lawless society, and that's what superheroes became. And the problem is if you call out the lawless society now, you're an istophobe. So
I think the problem is if you look at superheroes and the way that they conduct themselves, that is not how certain people think that you should conduct yourself. Like, they don't think that's morally right. They're not taking a stance. They're just doing what's right for everybody. And in today's society, I don't think you're allowed to do that. I think you have to take a side or you will get crucified.
Yeah. I think that's a small portion of society that's giving the rest of society a false choice.
But everyone's kind of buying into it, it feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
We've ended up with prison yard justice. You don't pick a side, then you get squashed.
But that's
it's worse to be in the middle and not pick a side than it is to pick a side.
But I think that this is where superheroes really thrive. And that's
why they're more relevant.
Yeah, this is why they are the most relevant that they could possibly be. Because this is them standing in the middle saying, no, we are not going to pick your side. We are not going to decide on picking winners and losers. We are just going to apply everything equally. We are not going to play your stupid fucking games. And that destroying, but that's kind of the same thing that the Western did, and now the superhero has kind of taken on that mythology, its place in the mythology, and that's where it was doing the Western was doing the same thing. It was bringing order to a lawless land. It was creating order out of chaos, and that's what superheroes do. And so they are not taking sides. They're just taking the side of order and objective truth.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that the United States is unique in that, as far as the justice narrative, but it is extremely popular within our culture for elements to be seen as bringing justice, to bring that order to chaos. And other cultures before haven't done that. They were not as involved. Their entertainment and their media and their in their stories and mythos. Myths weren't centered around justice. They were not justice centric. And that's something that's I'm not going to say unique to the American culture, but it is more prevalent within our culture. So that's why it's so shocking to us that somebody would attack, the idea that bringing justice, that speaking on behalf of justice is being attacked right now.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know, guys. I think we're coming down to the end. Is there anything else that somebody needed to say about the article, or maybe something we didn't mention that you can actually put on YouTube without it, getting me in trouble?
Well, I still come back to, I think that this is an attempt at seeding the land for the future. I don't think that this article in and of itself is expecting to actually make any real progress, but it shifts the Overton window to that being acceptable discourse and not just laughed out of the room for being preposterous. And that's the whole goal of it. Make this an actual conversation that we're actually having right now. And by virtue of the fact that we spent, an hour and 47 minutes on this topic so far, we've allowed the Overton window to shift to accept this to not just being laughed out of the fucking room.
Well, there's an attempt to fundamentally change how the entertainment industry works, and it's already gotten a good foothold in television. And by that I mean you look at television shows in general, you have to look very hard to find a conservative viewpoint in any of them. The show not starring Tim Allen. It's the same thing with superhero movies and just entertainment in general. You're gonna, the more you can push, and like I said, if this article changed one or two minds, I think the end game is to basically create a one opinion system where if they can get rid of the people that don't want what they want, eventually we're going to go away, die off or assimilate, and then you're going to have no choice but to accept the entertainment that they present to you. And
eventually everything's Taco Bell, and it's all five-star restaurant, right?
I was talking in our Twitter channel the other day that my wife has developed this bad habit. I wouldn't say it's a bad habit, but it's a habit that whenever she sees something woke on a TV channel that's just like in your face, crazy woke, she blocks the channel. She'll go to the parental lock thing, and she's got the code. I don't know what it is. I can reset it. I can reset the whole thing, from the little dish app. I can reset the whole thing. But yeah, she'll go to the parental lock thing. Oh, so much for that channel. And,
so you're watching a lot of Hallmark movies.
And she nukes it from orbit. And so we went from having like 800 and something whatever channel, it's a monstrous amount of channels, like 70% of them are gone now. It's like, what happened to sci-fi? Oh, it's gone. It's way gone. And I go, what happened to BBC America? Nope, it's gone. And I'm just scrolling through there in all these blank spaces. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And she's like,
I'm just
nope.
picturing Pele just sitting down. He's like, all I can watch is the NASA channel. Sitting watching spacewalks.
There's quite a few, but the major networks, they're all gone. ABC, CBS, they're gone.
He's watching just nothing but Cornerstone.
Fox News.
You couldn't even watch Vagrant
News,
Queen.
There's a
nobody watched Vagrant Queen.
Nobody watched that. What are you talking about? It had like 200,000 viewers.
Then you don't miss Sci-Fi Channel.
I think Wes has got more views than Vagrant Queen.
Yeah, probably.
Perhaps I'm over 1 million now.
There you go.
I do think it's
Good job,
funny
bud.
that she decided to be proactive in that, and it's just like there's nothing hardly left to watch. And I'm just like, wow, this is what TV looks like when you remove all of the far left crazy, woke garbage, and that's how prevalent it is. It's just that's how prevalent it is.
I do want to say thank you very much to Ryan Wilson for the $4.99 super chat. If these celebs didn't have FU money, then they wouldn't say things that they do. So we need not to give them money. Oh, that's a good idea, and I don't know that boycotts ever work, but I certainly I put my money into creators and projects that I think that are worth my time, and there's a reason I don't really support Star Wars anymore, and it's not even that it's woke; it's just that it's bad. So we all have our reasons for supporting and not supporting things, and but I definitely believe that if those people, these celebrities that are out there telling us all how to live our lives didn't have millions and millions of dollars, they probably wouldn't be so interested in telling us all how to live.
It was a mistake to ever start seeing actors, actresses, and entertainers as anything greater than whores, the way that the Romans used to.
Yeah, I mean that's the way they were in the same social status as prostitutes, and usually a lot of them were prostitutes. So
yeah, and if you were a woman, or I guess even dudes, back in the early Hollywood days, you were kind of frowned upon if that was like what you wanted to do, move to LA and work in Hollywood and that type of stuff. You're kind of like a woman of ill repute.
I do want to say thank you very much to Ryan. We do have another super chat from Kenneth Allen, $5. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Thanks for the great discussion, Wes. Take care, everyone. Tomorrow's my birthday. Enjoying myself, and I love Married with Children. Peace. Well, shall we sing Happy Birthday to Kenneth?
I think we should.
1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you.
Are we allowed to do this?
Happy
birthday
to you.
Happy birthday, dear Kenneth. Happy birthday
to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Many more.
I have an enormous spider right here, so you guys talk while I kill this thing.
Oh my!
All right.
Wait, get bit first.
No, get bitten.
Yeah.
Get bitten.
Wait, no. First irradiate it.
Yes.
Put it in the microwave.
Put it in the microwave. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
the microwave.
Yeah, like those two kids that let those poisonous spiders bite them, thinking they were going to become Spider-Man.
Oh man.
That's the reason why we got Herbie right in the cartoons, because of the whole Human Torch thing.
Yep.
And it was just because they were worried that kids might do that, right?
Right. You're like, I remember seeing an article about that where these kids thought they were going to be Human Torch by dousing themselves in gasoline and lighting themselves on fire. But
they didn't read the story that you have to go in space first.
Yeah, Tide Pods don't seem so stupid anymore, do they?
Well, that's where you should really read the Seduction of the Innocent. If anybody out there that hasn't, it's it was what brought about the initial. Is why we ended up with the Comics Code Authority, and the whole story behind that, and the influences at the time that were trying to destroy comics, and but if you ever get a chance to read that, it is fantastic. Really, really. You can't take all of it seriously, of course, but you can see from a historical perspective of where this was 60 years ago, 70 years ago. So I fully endorse reading that. It's fascinating.
All right, Doc, this one's for you. Dave Scarpa wants to know, would you express the same opinions for right-leaning actors who express their opinions publicly? Would you also say that they are prostitutes?
Yes.
Why are we defending Dean Cain then?
I don't care what Dean
No,
Cain
I'm just
does.
kidding.
Honestly, I really don't. I don't care about. I just don't want people lecturing everyone else on what they're supposed to be doing. I hated it when it was when I was growing up, and it was the busybody church lady on the right, and whenever whoever that guy was, it was already the preacher guy that was always on TV, one of the early televangelists. I hated that, and I can't stand. Yeah, Jerry Falwell. I can't. I hated him. They were annoying. They drove me up the damn wall. It bugs me, and I don't like it for actors and actresses. At least with Jerry Falwell, as much as I dislike that guy, he was just lecturing. He got big because he was lecturing about God, and then he kept lecturing about God. I don't care, but hearing a bunch of Hollywood weirdos that got big for playing pretend, and then want to lecture me about something that has nothing to do with acting.
Yeah. I respect the actors that do so much more positive things in building communities and stuff like that, and actually using that influence for charity work. I really respect those people. Gary Sinise I respect tremendously. You've got these incredible people out there that do these type of things. They use it as a vehicle to support, charities and, like sick children and stuff like that, like for the St. Jude's. I really have tremendous respect for them. I don't have respect for anybody that just uses their clout that they've gotten by playing pretend, to do political crap, just so they can tell other people what to do. No.
I'll tell you who's annoying me is all the people that are shaming on either side for the mask during COVID-19. I think it's a personal decision. We all have the right to make their decision. But that's the show today, folks. So I think we're done here. I'm so glad to be getting out of this. Hopefully we're not banned. Hopefully the channel will still be here tomorrow. All right, Yul. Thank you for joining us. You got anything to say before you head out?
No, I thought this was a pretty good discussion. We loosely talked about seduction of the innocent. That's what this article kind of reeks of just a little bit. Maybe not as well thought out.
It's not.
Yeah,
no,
but
it's seduction of the innocent. If you take out all of the intellectual pursuit involved in scholarship. That's what this article is.
Right.
Do we have any comic suggestions? Do we have any comic suggestions before we go?
We're not doing that. There's no new comics this week. God, I'm running the show.
All right.
Get out of here. This is the go home segment.
Okay, fine.
There are no new comics this week.
There was a bunch of guys asking for recommendations.
I'm sorry. We'll do it next week when there's actually comics again. I'm sorry, everybody.
Go to bed, Breen.
All right, Breen. You got anything to say before we wrap this up? I'm glad you finally made it back on the channel.
No, sir. Nothing to say here. Time to go.
Boom. Perfect. That's why you're my favorite guest. Pele, got anything else?
Come follow me at @just_Pele on Twitter and Instagrams, and we'll continue this conversation. And if you have any questions about comics regarding grading, values, vintage comics especially, hit me up, @just_Pele, and we will carry the conversation over there.
Perfect. Ash, you have anything to say? Also, Ash has a beautiful, pristine YouTube channel. If you like comic books, you should go check him out.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, I just wanted to say something real about what Dave, is it Scarpa, has said. Oh shoot! Now I forgot what about his point that he had about. Never mind. Gosh,
screw it.
I forgot what it
was. It about the? Was it about if you would shine the light on right-leaning?
Oh no, I know what it was.
Creators. Okay.
It was just basically I wanted to say, like, it's not about it was right-leaning creators. It's for me, everything you guys said was right. Like, I don't want the right, smashing me with their opinions too. But I'm cool with it as long as there's, like, everyone gets to have their opinions. But the problem that I'm facing in today's in the world that we have today, as far as comics and the media goes, is that the side that we're facing right now is not just trying to squelch out every other voice. It's trying to impose a monopoly of ideas, so that every movie you see is posing the same point about whatever their agenda. Every TV show, every comic book, everything. There will not be an opposing voice. And at least when you have in a world where you've got the televangelists and you've got the right, if everyone has a say, then you can pick and choose. Like, you know what? I don't want to listen to that. I can go over here. But what we're facing now is the big threat is just the all-encompassing. Let's take over everything, and now everyone will have to listen to our one monopolistic agenda. Like, and I think that's the dangerous point. And then finally, Wes, thanks for shouting out my channel. We didn't talk about Dean Cain today, but I made a video just yesterday. I popped it up. If you guys care about my voice about the whole Dean Cain incident, please check it out. I've been told it's not too bad.
All right, there you go. All right, Doc, you're getting us out of here. Got anything left to say?
Buy back issues. Buy lots of back issues.
Yep.
Read lots of back issues. Buy more comics. And wash your ass.
Wash your ass. There we go. That's it, people. Sign them up, ho. Love you all.